lens that I come from, mostly education and mostly from the counseling perspective. And literally, I just, so kindergarten, 8th grade. So I'm at the core foundation talking about some of these very same things, and the idea of respect being, we simplified it. How do you respect someone? You show them that they are cared for and that they are loved. In its simplest form. And so, how do you show someone that they are cared for, loved, and that they're actually important? So they're cared for and important is a way in which you continue to communicate your respect for that person. And so I think we also taken out the notion, or maybe perverted the sense of the idea of love being actualized amongst without it being in a romantic sense. There's various types of love. I always talk about the eros, the brotherly love coming from Philadelphia, parental love, and then the love that you have as romantic. And so returning back to our community focus, because many non people of color have a very community-minded focus when we see each other.
Yes,
and so as the person that you were speaking to maybe didn't have that lens of being able to understand why is it that he is so invested in these women who are not a part of his biological family. How is that? Well, because culturally speaking, within many of the African diaspora, you can walk out your door and someone who is of that age, it's mama, it's auntie. I don't know how many times I've been called auntie, or I'm looked at as grandmother. I don't know how that's I'm definitely looked at as grandmother. I work within a bilingual charter school, and they don't come up to me and call me Grandma Jenkins, but that's the way that all of the children, and I didn't teach them that, but it's because I truly believe it's because of our cultural similarities of understanding this is my proximity to you as grandma, as auntie, as mother. And so we're keeping that regard of that respect of I see you as important because of who you are to me, and I can extend a certain measure of care in my connection with you. And so if I think about also what I see at our foundation is what I'm involved in most of the days, we don't know, or we don't necessarily respect the boundaries. I am separating folks all day long in the classroom and in my office in counseling sessions, because we're not respecting certain boundaries of, okay, I need to respect that I can't touch you like this, or I have the opportunity to touch you, but I'm going to refrain because I haven't even asked you. Can I have access to you? So protection also comes with proximity and understanding your position within the community. I hope I didn't go all the way around.
No. This is your lived experience, and I thank you. I thank you for that. And you mentioned proximity and touch, and what has influenced that? What has the touch is possibly not the issue, but what has given somebody the license and permission that thinks it's okay to touch you? So I believe we're going to get to that in a later question. So that's, thank you very much, and that word love. That word love, you spoke about agape and eros and Philadelphia, city brotherly love. I think love and violence, these are two misunderstood concepts, because you mentioned the spiritual with the physical piece. But the love goes beyond that. Love goes beyond. How do we operationalize love? How do we actually do love? Opposed to saying I love you. So that's something that, along with violence, how do we understand love so we can actually do love? We can make that love into a verb and actually measure that love.
Exactly, because that's also a verb. Love is a verb, and violence is also a verb. And so as we think about, and I like to also think about violence also from another perspective as well. You know, I think about violence as a commitment to, for power and control. I need you to do something other than what you're doing. So I need to either physically alter or physically engage you. I need to either humiliate or shame you, guilt trip you, or when we think of harassment also, because I am using all of those forms of violence to control your behaviors, to control your actions within the community that we're all a part of. So I think about violence also from that lens as well.
Excellent. Thank you so very much for just we're speaking to that deprivation, that maldevelopment piece, that obstacle, you know, violence that is coming forcefully between, you know, you and your goals, your objectives, your vision. That's a violent act. So it's obstruction. So yes, thank you so very much. Again, I want us to have these difficult conversations in environments such as this, and we can learn together. It's not that you know, we don't have it all together. We all together have it all together, but individually we just don't. So this is the puzzle, you know. So we're going to turn our sights now to the men's. We're going to turn ourselves to the men's, and I'm going to start with Mr. Cologne. I'm going to start with Mr. Cologne. And the question is, how does various forms of violence that women face affect one's desire or ability to protect them?
Before I begin, I want to say welcome, good evening, and acknowledge the fact that these are the moments that they don't talk about. Everybody here is interested in something positive for our people.
Yes, sir.
And these are the moments that they don't talk about. These are the moments that you get pushback about. You hear the collective of educated, thinking, caring, collaborative Black minds. This is our salvation. What we're doing right here, right now, and if you're a part of it, acknowledge it within yourself. Okay? Here. To answer your question,
Yes, sir.
you spoke about the desire
Yes, sir.
to protect.
Yes,
And
sir.
I think that within any human being, the desire to protect a loved one is primal, is elemental. If somebody acts to hurt somebody you love, you want to bust their ear. Plain and simple. The desire is one thing. I think it's a very elemental part of being human, to protect somebody that you love. When you speak about ability, I think that if you define protection as providing a safe space, a roof over your head, if protection means you're in an environment where you have food on the table, or heat in the wintertime, gas in the car, then for some of us, our ability to meet those needs is limited.
Yes, sir.
If you consider Black men fall last in employment rates, last in education degrees, security obtained, last in employment, last in income, but first in incarceration. Okay, and the narrative will make you believe that it's the fault of Black men, and I'm here to tell you that it's not. And the one document that I would refer to support my contention is the 1968 Kerner Commission report.
That's right.
On civil disobedience. If you have not heard of that document, I urge you, I beg you, to please go and read it. If anyone here is concerned about social justice, restoration, a positive social dynamic, I urge you to find that document. The Kerner Commission report on civil disobedience, 1968. And if you can't find it, let me know, and I'll get it to you, I promise you that. But the thing that's interesting is that when a man feels that he's unable to provide these kinds of protections, he feels less. He has lower self-esteem, lower self-worth,
That's right.
and insecurities, and guess what? These are the factors that lead to abusive personalities. When somebody feels that they're less, they want to be more, they have to control something. One of the reasons I went back to school at the age that I did was because I talked to the people in my community, the brothers, and I noticed this discrepancy between what they know they are within themselves. They know they're intelligent, they know they're capable, and where they manifest in this society. And they struggle trying to comprehend, I know I'm good, I know I got something in me, I know I can do this. And they just keep falling and failing, and things knock them down. Some of them get too disappointed, and that frustration, I think, is part of the thing that contributes to domestic violence. So that's what I consider having the difference, I guess, between the desire to protect and the ability to protect.
Wow, powerful, sir. Thank you very much. We heard self-worth, self-esteem in there. And, like hearing versus listening, we have self-esteem versus self-worth. The world and external factors can inflate or deflate one's self-esteem. However, what you pour in yourself and what you cultivate facilitates your value. So you have your self-value. And no one rarely can affect, you can just increase or decrease. You have control of that. So what dear brother was mentioning was access to education, access to employment, access to proper health care, physical environment, social environment. And those negative outcomes in those particular environments creates a degree of frustration. Therefore, they may strike out to maybe the closest person to them. Am I interpreting it right, sir?
I think that's the same interpretation.
Yes, sir. So how do we understand that? How do we understand that, and how do we work to facilitate positive outcomes? Positive outcomes in the areas where we have negative outcomes to reduce the possibility of frustration and increase our ability and desire to protect our communities, namely the most precious resource of our community, our women. Next, Stevenson.
All right, how you doing? I'm not as eloquent as these brothers are or the sisters are, but when I hear them speak, this is one of the things that I hear. I hear Willie Lynch. And what I mean by that, because if you ever read the Willie Lynch papers, they speak about how we're going to separate the family. We're going to separate the men from the women. We're going to separate our brothers. And it just seems that by taking jobs away from the men, makes it harder for them to provide for the family. Then the women seem to be escalating and moving up. Like I was telling the brother that most of the people that are graduating from universities with master's degrees and then going out to own their own business are African American women, not men. So now it builds up this thing between the man and the woman. So the man, when he feels like he can't provide, unfortunately what he wants to do is control. He wants to control the woman and he wants to control his environment. He can't do that. And that leads to, a lot of violence. Now, I can only say that from experiences. And I mean by watching the things that my mother went through, how difficult it was for her to get a job. And every man that she seemed to get, well, they rather use their fists than their brains. You understand? So I don't know why men do it. I never did it. And I guess I never did it because of the love that I have for my mother. And that's the love that I convey to other women or women, because I think we're all human beings. Most of the women that do know me, they'll tell you that I have the utmost respect for them. And that's because of what they can bring to the table. I think women are very powerful. I think that men are not looking at them enough. And maybe they need to follow a little bit what the woman is doing. Take your ass to school, get an education. If you don't like the situation that you're in, kind of work hard to get out of it. I spent 20 years of my life to actually want to be an educator. And that means I spent 20 years of my life, hard work, to get degrees. so that I can come along and be an educator. So I think if I could put that in, I didn't learn how to read and write until I was 14 years old. So if I could put in that hard work to better myself so that I can be the provider that I want to be for my family, I think everybody else can kind of go along with that. So that's my little stick.
Thank you, brother. Thank you. In that, we heard Willie Lynch, and then some of us that are not too familiar with that, again, I will echo what our dear brother mentioned, and it's maybe a 30 or 40 page document, but it's an easy read, but it speaks about separation, it speaks about creating competition, and so forth. So I think it's a great book that we should read to clearly understand how colorism, ageism, and all those isms play out in our community. And now we have a model, we have a book now to explain the origin, where that came from. So thank you so very much for enlightening us, brother, and allowing us to further understand, take us deeper into the conversation. Thank you. My dear brother, Nakeem. Okay, we have the question. How does various forms of violence that women face affects one's desire or ability to protect them?
I watched my mother at a very young age, fight throughout all struggles possible for me and my brother. She married my stepmom, and I remember looking back to when she was with my dad, and I remember my dad was not the greatest man ever, nowhere close. And I remember, what she had to do to get out of that controlling situation. It took him to be behind bars to get out of that controlling situation and to escape that. Coming from a young mindset, obviously I'm on social media and everything, and there's a trend, going on, and it's asking women, like, if you were stuck in the forest, would you rather be stuck with a bear or a man? A lot of the women are choosing a bear. And to me, that's terrible. That's terrible. A bear? Like, that's terrible. And I think protection comes within a man's pride and the ability to let go of his pride at certain points. I don't think a woman can fully be protected unless a man can drop his pride.
Wow.
I think it starts with, obviously I'm big on mental health.
Yes, sir.
And I know how it feels to fail when you can't provide. I know how it feels when you are broke in the relationship and your partner is the one making all the money. It makes you feel low. It makes you feel like you aren't on the same page. It makes you feel insecure. But at the same time, if you're willing to trust her, because one thing women know how to do is trust, even when we don't deserve it. So if she's willing to trust you and you're willing to trust her, you have to, at a certain point, the walls have to come down. And if they don't come down, that's what leads to abuse. That's what leads to basically you throwing everything out of the way of your life, all your future, just because you don't want to bring down that wall. Because you think, growing up, you had to be the one to do this. But I also feel like men don't realize you're not alone.
Wow. He said so much there. He said so much. The foundation. But I've heard you say a few times, sir, about the humility, and being humble, and being willing to set aside your pride, to show a form of trust, which will further enable a degree of protection. Matter of fact, we were talking about that earlier today, about trust, and how hard it is for people that have been abused for centuries to trust each other. So that's a job in itself, to humble yourself, to listen to her, so you can protect her beyond the physical and structural piece, and putting a lock on the door and putting money in her. How is she feeling secure as far as emotionally? You know, so thank you very much, because that humility plays a huge piece, because it shows you that you're vulnerable, that you're willing to show her something that nobody else sees. So thank you for your contribution. What makes this panel discussion different from in any other panel discussion is, one, nobody's having this discussion. Nobody's having this discussion. This ain't Club Shay Shay. You know, they ain't having this, because nobody's attracted to this. Nobody wants to have this hard, unique, difficult conversation. They want to wish it away. It'll get, let's just throw a stimulus check at it. Let's just give them this, give them that, give them more music to dance to, and it'll all go away. We got to get beyond the entertainment and get to the training piece. And we have to meet each other where we are at. You know, we have to come to the locations physically, emotionally, financially, to where we're at, so we can teach and train each other and show that degree of compassion and brotherly love. Because if we don't do that, then if we don't do that, then we'll just continue to be entertained. And again, after this, I plan on creating a manual, and I'm probably gonna come back to this community of interest to help me do that. Like, I'm gonna ask New Orleans and other folks from Tampa and Dallas to help me construct this piece. So as we move forward to our third question, and this is to all our panel members, the protection of womanhood, namely Black womanhood, goes beyond interpersonal relationships between her and her partner, family, and friends. There appears to be an attack on her persistently through social media, movies, music, 24-hour news cycle. How do you propose that we counter this attack? It's a very complex question. How do we propose that we counter this attack, the persistent onslaught through media, music, 24-hour news cycle, and so forth? So with that, I'm going to turn this to Sister Juanita to lead us off.
Okay. So I'm consistently in the educator space, and I believe education is the key for that begins to speak to that, because we talk about training. Well, training is education. Yes, and it's that each one teach one. It is that rebuilding that self-worth and that self-esteem. I always say to people, like, you're not born with self-esteem. You're not born with self-worth. So how do you get it? Somebody has to pour it in. Somebody has to be intentional about building your character. Somebody has to be intentional about building you up. And so if everybody's too busy just, living just enough for the city, okay, why point at a young person and say, oh, that's why she's doing it, because she has low self-esteem? Well, where's she supposed to get high self-esteem from? Where's he supposed to get high self-esteem for himself and members of his community if nobody's pouring it in? And so that each one teach one, I truly believe that that's where it has to start. And in the schools, I'm gonna tell you right now, the schools cannot do it all. They are only with your child for 5 days, 7 hours out of the day, but they are not the sole responsible person for pouring in the self-worth for your child. Yes. Or for your new graduate who's not necessarily finding his way in the world. That self-esteem process has to be continued through your 20s, through your 30s, and as you transition to each phase of your life as a parent of an adult child. Okay, how do you continue to pour in your self-worth by even without no longer having that same power dynamic with your child? How do you pour in your own self-worth? Because some people have children because they want to feel better. Some people have children because I want somebody to love me. Okay, but there's some additional supports that are needed. So yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Ms. Mercer. Look at the question, the protection of womanhood, namely black womanhood, goes beyond the interpersonal relationship between her, her partner, her family, and her friends. There appears to be an attack on black women via social media, via music, social media, movies, the 24-hour news cycle. This understanding, how do you propose that we counter this attack?
I'm going to fall back. I think Sister Jenkins said it the best. You know, one of the things I have to say is that this is not a new game, right? This has been our life since we've been brought to this country. So we have always been diminished from our enslavement through, Jim Crow, and now we all, some of us here may think that we're in a much better place. We're doing much better than we ever were. But the actuality is that it's the same game with a new face. And if you aren't paying attention, then you don't know it's happening to you. So you don't understand why you feel bad about the way you look, or the way people can make you feel like you're not smart enough, or those things happen. They're happening for a reason. It's all subliminal. And if you're not paying attention, like if you can watch commercials today and see it happens all the time. So it's really important that we educate each other. We need to come together as people, black people, men and women, supporting one another in the space that we're in. Because without our mutual support, we're always going to fall victim to the way people make us feel lesser than, right? We're always thinking that we haven't done enough, right? Our parents told us we had to work twice as hard to get half as far. We need to understand that we work twice as hard and we're usually farther than the other person. It's just that no one acknowledges us that way. So until we, my husband says all the time that we go through school from kindergarten to nth grade and we don't learn a thing about ourselves. We learn about our oppressors. We learn how we're going to learn about them because we're going to eventually work for them. We came to this country enslaved to work for them, and we are still working for them, right? So we haven't elevated ourselves to understand that we can have the industries, we can have the ability to build corporations and all of the things that those others do. We just don't do it because we don't have the personal feeling of empowerment to get it done, because we're always working from, I gotta work twice as hard to get half as far. We need to understand our greatness, and we don't understand our greatness if we don't educate ourselves on where we came from and who we were before we came here to become the people we are now, right? We were a great people. We still are a great people, and the only way we get to the point where we get to where we understand that we are this, I am a woman that is a smart woman, that is a woman who I can do anything I want to do, is to educate ourselves and support one another. Everybody in here is my brother and sister. But when we don't see each other as a nation of great people who belong together, who support one another, then we can continue to spin our wheels and have this conversation 20 years from now, because this is not a conversation we haven't had before. I don't want to Dr. Henry's toes. This is a conversation that's been had. We continue to have it because we don't move the needle and respect and appreciate who we are as a people.
Excellent. I tell you, the stories we tell ourselves. You notice I mentioned media, movie, social media, 24-hour news cycle. This is all information. The music,